Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Industry Symposium Session 12, and I'm delighted to welcome you here to this event at ECR 2025. It's great that so many of you are here in the room with us, and I understand that this is being streamed live, and also ESR members with ESR Connect will be able to catch up afterwards as well. So hopefully this resonates for you all, both whether you're here in the hyperspace or watching on catch-up. So my name is Nicholas Spencer. I'm a practicing clinical radiologist based in the UK. I'm an experienced operational and strategic leader in the NHS, and I work for AGFA HealthCare as their Chief Clinical Information Officer across Europe. I'm delighted today to be joined by my two colleagues from AWS and Alliance Medical. Dr Rowland Hilling is the Chief Medical Officer and Director of Global Healthcare and Non-Profit at Amazon Web Services, which we all know as AWS. He is responsible for strategy and engagement across healthcare and non-profit customers globally, including providers, payers, and health technology companies. He is particularly focused on technologies like artificial intelligence and how AI can drive health equality and sustainability, as well as allow healthcare organizations to better harness their data for efficiency and patient benefit. I'm also honored to have him here particularly today because he's a Congress plenary speaker, and his plenary lecture on Healthy People, Healthy Planet will be tomorrow at 11:30. So I encourage you to join that as well. He's hoping the technology in the main hall works better than it did last night. And I'm sure he's right. Peter Strouhal, who's also with us today, is the Medical Director and a board member of Alliance Medical UK. As we will discuss during this symposium, Alliance Medical is one of Europe's largest diagnostic imaging providers with scanning footprint across 10 countries. Peter's worked in diagnostic radiology for more than 20 years, balancing leadership in public and independent sectors with his work as a clinical radiologist. He is passionate about transformative potential of new technologies, including AI, in both imaging and clinical operational workflows. He has a sharp focus on governance, research integrity, and radiation safety. Most of all, Peter is a committed team player and leader. We are all employees of the companies we represent today, and Peter is here at the Congress as a guest of AGFA HealthCare, but we have no other conflicts of interest to declare. The format of the way we're going to run today is that I'm going to speak for 5 minutes about the tech under the bonnet in our enterprise imaging suite and our new streaming technology. Then Peter's going to give some background as to what Alliance Medical are hoping to achieve by our project. Rowland will then go on to talk about AWS and how they're an integral part of the solution that we're going to deliver. And then we'll open up to have Q&A, both from inside the room and remotely. I've got an additional device that will add questions and complexity for me, but I hope I managed to be clear so that you can enjoy the presentation and the Q&A. So, AGFA HealthCare is well known as an industry leader in the PAC space, and our enterprise imaging solution is award-winning. But we have new and unique technology. Our Gen 5 streaming client has impressive capabilities. It's able to stream pixels and not data to enable people to read the study without routing the study. This is unique technology in the industry, and when you combine it with cloud storage, it means that a dispersed network of working practices, both between institutions and also distributed as to where your radiologists and other reporters may be working, becomes possible. So there's technology behind the streaming client that enables effortless access, and this new technology really is part of the future of radiology and big data. It enables an intelligent pixel cache that reduces data traffic and improves system performance. It gives access to the images, the clinical tools that you need for reporting, and the workflow management wherever you're working. It does this with speed and efficiency, meaning the imaging loading and live navigation, interactive and advanced processing, all is possible. It enables team collaboration, both between radiology and the clinical enterprise, and also is an excellent tool for MDT or tumor boards. And there are no compromises because full fidelity images are available to view all of the time. What does this mean? Well, here we are in Vienna, and that's the red dot in the middle. And suppose there was a render node in our Antwerp data center, and if there was unimpeded fiber, that would mean 60 millisecond latency could take us as far as 4,500 kilometers from where the imaging was being stored and being able to read at full fidelity without delay. So around the edge of that map, that takes us well beyond the boundaries of Europe, and in theory, it's possible to be reading from Q8 from a data center in Western Europe. So in summary, we have blazing fast streaming technology. It is designed with an architecture that's cloud native, and you'll hear from Rowland as to why that's so crucial. There are additional benefits because it's cost efficient, system software, and we're moving from delivering software at the desktop and underlying hardware to a software as a service model. And with all the intelligent diagnostic tools, plus augmented imaging and augmented reality and AI, we're in a position to offer a compelling solution. So what does this look like in practice? This slide is just representative potentially of a number of institutions acquiring a number of different studies, and with the technology interface in between, it's possible for radiologists to have their workflow curated from the different institutions into different places. And this tech really brings us to why we're here today. AGFA HealthCare and our partners from AWS, Streets Heaver, who are delivering an EMR solution, and XWive, who are a clinical decision support solution, are building this ecosystem for Alliance Medical UK to meet the needs of a complex, dispersed radiology network. And they will be able to leverage enterprise imaging as its cloud form, giving them all the benefits and functionalities and opportunities of that system, combined with the advantages of managed software as a service solution. And my last slide reminds us of the real importance with regards to security first mindset. AGFA HealthCare has always had this, and along with our partners, we use best in practice development, continuous monitoring, and have an extensive range of ISO certifications and awards. So I'm now going to hand over to Peter, who's going to talk to us about Alliance Medical and what they needed from our solutions.
Right, thank you, Nick. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So if you were paying attention as you were arriving, you'll have seen the footprint that Alliance Medical Group has over Europe, which is this. This is the bit I look after, the UK, and that's more than enough. As you can see, we're covering a lot of the country, right from north to south, complex diagnostic imaging, and we're also very proud to say that we partner with the NHS. Now, whilst we're proud to say that, and we deliver lots of, I think, good quality scans, including some complex imaging and PET-CT across the country, it is partnered with the NHS. And of course, that also then comes with some challenges. The NHS is suffering with workforce issues like everybody else, but it's still also being used as intended for point of care use, and the demand is ever increasing. The numbers of staff are not going up as fast, and Alliance is actually disseminated across the country, but we're one organization. Sometimes the sort of the myth buster, and apologies if I'm kind of surprising a few people here, the NHS is not actually in reality one organization. It's multiple individual hospitals actually struggling their way through the digital ecosystem and trying to make their way forward and trying to connect with hospital partners around the country and succeeding to lesser or greater extent. But if we partner with the NHS, we can't afford to do it in any way except one that works all of the time as much as possible. So we have to get across some of the issues that the NHS faces and do something slightly differently. Now, although we're across the country, we're not just one size fits all. Sometimes we're a mobile truck somewhere, Sometimes we're a community diagnostic centre. Just on Monday, I opened up a PET CT scanner, a digital PET CT scanner in a diagnostic centre. I think that's the first in the UK. And sometimes we're very much part of our hospital, integral within the bricks and mortar. So sometimes it's completely seamless for the patient experience. But the point is, we're not just disseminated across the country. Our staff are across those sites. They have to be able to network together to produce a meaningful workforce. The scanners have to all talk to each other. Some of those scanners, of course, are also moving as well as the staff. So you get the idea there's lots of moving parts, and we have to know where everybody is, where the equipment is, and what it's doing. So we need a network that works. So we have to be able to seamlessly integrate. And the challenge we've had is that we've had a legacy system that is very much on-premise. What does that really mean? Well, it means that I think we've got 104 servers, physical servers around, connected to other bits of equipment or local NHS IT. And we've got a tech team that are running around, not quite knowing where they're going from one day to the next, trying to manage all of those servers. So we took a decision not just to upgrade what we had, but to move fully onto cloud. Because we realized that actually, apart from the fact that that's the future and that's the direction of travel generally, it would give us even better integration, even better knowledge of what our systems are doing, so that we can feed back and support to the NHS in what it's trying to deliver for our patients jointly. So we needed a seamless digital infrastructure, so it's that left-hand side really that I'm talking about here. We had to have something that was advanced and also something that was fit for the future, not just for today and tomorrow, but increasing demands for the next, say, 10 years. So in essence, it does work kind of now, but we wanted something that worked much better. And that's where our partners are stepping in, and that's where we're getting to. And does it really matter? Do we really need a network? What difference does it make? Well, this is genuine hard data that shows having a network that plugs into the NHS does make a difference. This is at that community diagnostic centre that I just mentioned. This is even before the PET CT scanner was installed. So now there's a fast track access to that service. We were able to reduce the lung cancer waits. And I think also, it's not on this slide, but we've also now done it for head and neck cancers, where we've significantly shortened the patient journey from potential diagnosis from the family practitioner to the point where they land at the MDT with a full workup in place. And that's because we've got a network that supports the NHS in a way that it doesn't necessarily have. That community diagnostic centre is in Oldham. You wouldn't believe me if I told you the Windows platform that they're running in some of Oldham General Hospital. It's not Windows 7 even. So it's not going to cope with what's coming today and tomorrow, but we needed something that was. So that's why we're trying to do it. We're trying to move forward, and we're delighted to be able to partner with these guys to try and deliver that. I don't know.
I think it probably is.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this session. Delighted to be here. I think it's a really exciting session to have both technology, solutions providers, and end users on the same stage together, because it really is a continuum of the tech from beginning to end. And a lot of you may not know what AWS actually is. So Amazon Web Services is the technology arm of Amazon. So I'm the Chief Medical Officer of AWS. That doesn't mean I look after all the Amazon staff, which most people think I do. Or indeed, I can't deliver anything to you, so please don't ask me for any packages. My role is to really talk to the end users of the technology. So we have teams around the world. It's, healthcare is an in-country, for-country around the world. And we have dedicated healthcare teams working with providers, payers, and health technology companies from national governments, research organizations, diagnostic networks, to individual hospital systems and single outpatient practices. So the full gamut. And we are in the middle of a tectonic shift to cloud computing as an infrastructure. And I hope to see many of you tomorrow for the keynote. We'll dive even further on that. The reasons why the cloud is important to deliver these kind of solutions at a network level are myriad. There are a whole bunch of different solutions, and I'm not going to touch on all of them. I'm going to touch on two. Those two being security and resilience, And then availability, and that's business continuity. Who was in the meeting yesterday for the opening ceremony? That was a server failure that you watched. That was the local server going down. Now, I don't know the reason for that. It was unlucky, most likely, most server failures are just unlucky. But there is increasing cybercrime, there is targeted ransomware attacks we're seeing around the world. And it is undoubtedly the case that by shifting that physical infrastructure and the virtualization layer into the cloud, you then can rely on a massive infrastructure which is dedicated to prevent that kind of server failure and near real-time backup. So it's business continuity is the key. Everything breaks. Everything always breaks. But the question is, how quickly can you recover from the breakage? And so as a radiologist, I'm an academic interventional radiologist, I've spent innumerable amount of time sitting in front of my PAC system with a spinning wheel of doom while my images don't load. That, hopefully, is what we'll be delivering with the AGFA solution to Alliance Medical. And the reason why AGFA has chosen AWS to partner with is because not all clouds are equal. Because again, a lot of this discussion is, well, it shouldn't be on-prem, it should be in the cloud. Any cloud's fine, choose a cloud. I think that is a real miss, because not all clouds are built equally. So AWS has 3 times more data centers globally than the next largest cloud. We have less than half the outages of the next most resilient cloud. And of those outages, we have less than 1/3 of the downtime. So if you want a cloud that just does backup, or you're going to back up your photos or something, or just doesn't really matter, fine, use any cloud you like. If you're just going to use word processing, that's also fine. Doesn't really matter. If you're using mission critical workloads that have to be used in production in front of patients to make sure that they are kept well, you want to choose the most secure and resilient cloud globally. And so that's why we're delighted to be partnering with Alliance Medical. We're delighted to be partnering with the UK NHS. So the NHS digital spine runs on AWS. The Ministry of Health of India has chosen AWS to partner with to build out the Ministry of Health digital platform for the entire country. We run the National Healthcare Record of Brazil on AWS. So we are truly a global infrastructure provider. But not only that, we're also building out specific services. So when I talk about a service, it's a managed packet of code. It's like a building block. So AWS wants to be that foundational piece. So not only is it secure and resilient, it's also a great place to build solutions. And that's why it's great, again, that AGFA has chosen AWS to build their next generation of solutions on, to move off-prem into the cloud. And so when we talk about cloud native, we're talking about solutions that leverage these specific managed packets of code, which are optimized to run in a distributed environment. So instead of coders having to code everything from scratch each time, they can actually take these managed packets of code, build solutions with, and then go faster. And so the time to build new solutions is reduced by around 40%. And so again, it's great that AGFA has just been awarded best in class this year for both vendor neutral archive and for zero footprint viewer, and have been awarded best in class for most improved software for this year. And AWS has also been recognized as best in class for the public cloud provider of choice for healthcare. So AWS will be awarded that at the HIMSS meeting in Las Vegas next week. And the reason why AWS has been awarded is for all of the reasons here. Overall performance as a cloud, but also culture and the way that we work with customers and partners, and how we can not only work with imaging solutions, but then bring that data strategy together. And we can dive into that a bit later in terms of how you bring the bigger ecosystem together on a common platform underneath. So we have the combination of best in class for solutions, best in class for infrastructure, hopefully will provide best in class solutions for the clinical networks. If you're interested, we've got a couple of things that are kind of assets. This is all the work we're doing in government healthcare around the world at the top. And we've got specific work underway with the European health data space, because there's a lot of concern saying, well, can you use the cloud in Europe? Is it allowed? Yes, is the answer. We've got fully cloud-based hospitals now running in Bavaria in Germany, which is the most, regulatory, high barriers to entry in Germany and Bavaria in particular. So we've got the Hospital Klinik Mein Schliefer in Germany, which is running fully in the cloud today. We've got whole hospital systems running in the cloud in the USA, like Tufts Medicine, Geisinger Health, all on the cloud. So again, we can run in the European health data space, and we're actually building a European sovereign cloud in particular for healthcare data around Europe. So happy to answer any further questions there during the discussion.
This is where it gets potentially interesting for me and potentially a little bit juggly. So I'll ask you to bear with me if it gets too complex for my little brain. So we've heard about our technology, we've heard about the cloud solution, and we've heard what Alliance Medical are hoping to deliver. So I'm going to kick off the Q&A, but please feel free to have your questions ready in the room. And if you've got a question, if you'd step up to the microphone so that the audience hears it. For those of you who are watching from remote at the moment, I've got a keypad, an iPad here or equivalent device, and I'll try and build in the opportunity for those questions to be asked and for us to give some answers as well. So I'm going to kick off by asking Peter. Alliance have a really dispersed and diverse service delivery model, as you've described, both for acquisition and reporting, and they're often separated. What are the key features you need from your enterprise imaging solution and storage model?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the answer is it's kind of that business continuity, essentially. You know, at the moment we have got those servers, and those servers just sometimes go down, and then we're rapidly deploying an engineer out to go and fix it. They've got to go to site. They can't often do it remotely. And the fact that we're moving away from that onto a cloud, it gives the continuity, it's got the backup, and you can do it remotely. So actually, not only does it give you the robustness, it gives you the instant accessibility by the engineer. They can be more available, even if they're working the same hours, they're traveling less. So actually, they're reducing their carbon footprint from that too. But actually, it's about that availability and that we can't afford to be turned off for even 5 minutes in an ideal setting. That's really the bottom line for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the radiologist in their reporting environment, they need to access the images, they need to be able to manipulate the images, they need to be able to do that in a seamless and effective way, and especially with the processing that's required, particularly for things like the hybrid imaging that's such a core part of your business.
Absolutely, because some of them start reporting, they might be doing it in their NHS time as part of their NHS job in a hospital. They might then log off, log back in under a different login and work in a kind of outsourced capacity, but equally they might leave the hospital, go home and want to continue reporting that list from home, and that more easily that they can remote log on from any location, the better. And you can do it with servers, but you then have to have a server in both locations. So if their access goes down, where does the engineer go? If your network can't see which server's gone down, they're making a choice of potentially running to two sites geographically to go and fix something. If you're on cloud, you can remote on. There's probably backup kicked in already while you're doing the fix where the original problem occurred. So it works all around.
And I think one of the things that's really nice about this session, think about it, is there's 3 radiologists on the stage who understand the challenges we've faced. Rowland was harking back to much earlier in his career, and those are problems that we remember being something that majorly inhibited our function, and our function is in a significant degree our output, not just the quality but also the quantity. So as a solution provider, AGFA wants to make it easy to keep the radiologist in their flow. And as a technology provider, I'm sure that AWS want to make sure that the images are accessible in the same way. So Rowland, what are those keys to successful delivery of the images to the reporter's desktop in the dispersed operation that we've outlined so far?
As I said, I think it's really having best-in-class solutions to do it. And I think the solutions need to be fit for purpose. There are many solutions currently running for PACS systems and RIS and all of the AI now that's running on top. And I think making sure that they are optimized for cloud use is critical, because there are different ways you can approach software, essentially. You can take the software that has been built on someone's desktop or underneath someone's desk and just run it in the cloud, and you treat the cloud a bit like you treat a desktop. And that's okay. That's all right. But it doesn't leverage all of those tools, those microservices, those managed packets of code, which are deliberately built to speed everything up. And so when those specific services are leveraged and the solutions are built cloud native, you suddenly see this massive acceleration in terms of reduction in latency and improved operations. And it also essentially allows you to create lots of APIs, these application programming interfaces, which are essentially plugins that allow other things to plug into. So it gives you much more ability to plug in things like AI solutions. So how you can then get the best-in-class AI attached to your solutions at the point of need. And again, the benefits of cloud is that you can scale up as needed. It's virtually unlimited. So again, it's not just storage, it's networking and compute power. Because the amount of generative AI, non-generative standard AI, multimodal foundation models that are now coming out, we are going to see an explosion of them in the next 5 years. And if you want to be able to leverage the best-in-class tools, you've got to be able to get the right tools there at the right time with scale. So I think that's a really important point about how we do it. Well, we've got to partner with the best solutions providers that are leveraging the best infrastructure to deliver those things to the end users.
I'm going to flip forwards to the slide that's meant to provoke you to come to the microphone. So I'm hoping that some people in the room will come to the microphone and we'll break. Are you happy to come up to the microphone so that everybody hears it?
Hello, I'm Marius. I'm a pediatric radiologist and I'm the clinical digital lead for the West Midlands Imaging Network. I take what you said, archive, give it to the experts to manage your archive. However, you are creating two new unknowns for trusts to run their clinical services, critical clinical services. And that's, they don't have actual control on the servers running the services. And you're creating possibly a bottleneck about your connection to the cloud to deliver those services. We've all heard of the stories of roadworks, getting the cable out for trusts and leaving them without a connection to the internet. So how would you convince clinicians, your CIOs, your SROs, that cloud is the way forward, especially when we're talking about regional solutions, that if they're out, your whole region is out of your imaging solution, not just one trust, which could be relying on the neighbor trust. How do you sell that to your fellow clinicians, but also to your fellow clinical, technical colleagues?
I think most organizations want to be first to be second, if that makes sense. They always want to be there, but always let someone else do it first and make sure it's okay, and then they'll follow on. And so I think we've got a very good global body now of evidence showing that moving these things to the cloud improves operational efficiency. So the whole of the University of California Health Systems now has all of their imaging platform running out of AWS in real time. They've got rid of all of their on-premises servers. Now, there are ways you can connect hospital systems directly to the cloud. You have a dedicated cable connecting it to the data centers. Obviously, you can access through the internet, you can access during broadband. This year, we're going to be launching a low Earth orbit satellite network called Kuiper. And so Kuiper will actually allow streaming of broadband to anyone who's got an aerial. And so this is going to absolutely democratize access to the internet more broadly. It is always comforting to keep a server in a basement and say, I'm controlling it, I know it. But the bottom line is the cyber attacks and the sophistication of the ransomware that's happening is far, far outpacing most CIOs in hospitals. That we have armies, literally armies of people who are looking at cybersecurity all the time to protect that infrastructure and virtualization layer. And not only that, we can actually run our machine learning and artificial intelligence on those security protocols. So it's like an onion skin. It's not only access management, it's also a trail of breadcrumbs. You can see who's been in, what's been done at any time across the entire system. Because if you've got zombie servers running under people's desks, you can access with a USB key, it poses risk. And so I think, ideally, healthcare is just going to see what all of the other industries around the world have already done. All of the global banks use the cloud. They just do. National security and defense organizations around the world are using AWS. And so I think we're on a tipping point at the moment. And so I think it's just going to happen. This is an inevitability in my mind. And I think people will get more and more comfortable as they see more and more organizations do it.
I think a comment I would make is Peter described the legacy systems that effectively they're working on, both from a storage point of view and to a degree the user interface. as AGFA HealthCare, we have a number of solutions from what is our current install base around the world of 1,000 institutions through to people making the transition partly with desktop client solution and partly with streaming. But what we are planning is this convergence of strategy. So Rowland described our Zero enterprise viewer, class leading, and we're bringing that software together with the enterprise imaging software, which also democratizes the ability to process image across the healthcare enterprise. So your clinicians have the access to the same tools, again, that may be themed or by permission to get people, so that straightforward users who just want to see the pictures can do that. But those that need to process them, and I'm thinking about vascular surgeons, interventional people, they've got that as well. So I think I'm going to pass back to Peter to say, why are Alliance brave enough to go to be first as opposed to first to be second?
I guess the simple answer is we're not actually going to be the first in the world, are we? We might be the first in the UK, and I'm not sure we actually are, because I think there's some hospitals in the southwest of London that have gone onto a cloud on a different solution. But we've just realised that there is enough evidence that we're comfortable that it's a safe step to take. And to your point, Marius, I think it's not just one pipe up to cloud. That's the point. There's a million. So someone can dig up the pipe in the road and go, oh, sorry about that. And we'll go, no problem, fix it in your own time. We've got at least 3 backups, 5 backups, whatever it is. And there's that robustness that means it's not actually ever going to fall over.
I was going to do a quick straw poll. Who here watches Netflix? Who watches Amazon Prime Video? Disney Plus? I'm like, Mandalorian's great. Who here still watches DVDs?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry, the SaaS expert.
Just saying that all of those video streaming services run on AWS. So that resiliency and robustness of streaming you're using today. And how many times have you gone into Netflix and the whole thing's failed? Very rarely. And so I think that is what we're seeing, just moving into the clinical domain, essentially.
And the failure is usually between your TV and your broadband router.
Yeah.
If you've got thick stone walls in your house. Yeah. Any more questions from the floor inside the room? And nudge those outside the room, because we haven't had anything from you yet. Clearly what we're talking about is a major transformational project. So Peter, what do you see as the early advantages? And then how ambitious are you into the medium and long term? And Rowland, I'll give you the chance to respond in terms of, does the tech need to keep moving to keep up with what Peter wants?
So the early win, or what we internally between us and AGFA like to talk about as an early win, in some ways is not really a true win. So what I mean by that is that our first site was meant to go live only a short while ago, but it's slightly delayed. And the reason that confession is still relevant is because the reason it's slightly late is because we want to get it right first time for that first site. We want to get everything right so it's got a kind of cookie cutter recipe that what happens at that one site we can then replicate. Because the plan is we'll get everything right at the first site. And by that I mean all of the fancy bits and all the bolt-ons that are looking at the future that we probably won't even roll out to the NHS for maybe 5 years, but we've planned them into scope. That will be ready for site 1. It then means we're not going to be able to go, or not have to go to site 2 and then 3 and then 4. We're going to do site 1, then sites, we think 2 to 5, then 6 to 11 all at once, and then 12 to 30. Remember, we've got to get to 84 sites, so we've got some work to do. But the idea is once you get that first site right, if you get it really right, the rollout actually then accelerates as you go. And that's the other advantage of doing it via cloud, of having that robustness, and all of that can be built in. But it makes that first site challenging. And we've held our hands up. That's our fault, because we've got a very clunky old legacy system that we've been kind of teasing along and going, oh, the servers will be fine. And we've kind of stalled a bit on making the decision. But now we're jumping properly, but equally we have to do it right. So it is a painful process, but you get that first one right and the rollout then becomes much quicker, and that's where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I think data strategy is key. And so it is a transformation process, and tech is actually the easiest bit. So we actually take organizations from an AWS perspective through a whole digital strategy program saying, actually, what apps are you running? So if we're doing a whole hospital transformation to the cloud, often you can uncover, so that this happened with Geisinger Health and Tufts, you'd actually do an app rationalization exercise up front and go, actually, you've got loads of licenses, loads of things, actually no one ever uses. You can really slim down, you can really decide what's important, what's not important. But it's all about mindset in terms of, is the organization ready to go? Is it top-down led from the CEO saying this is an imperative? Are the people in place? So actually, do you have the right people trained to use the technology? Because this isn't an old legacy IT problem. This is a very modern way which you've got to be trained to do it differently. And then are the processes in place? Because the way that data flows are different. And so again, there are a whole bunch of things that need to be done before you get to the technology stage. And again, it's great that that time is being taken up front to make sure it's being done well, because then you can do it at scale quickly.
And I'm just going to make one more comment with regards to imaging networks in the UK, which out of necessity have been around for quite some time, but we're seeing network creation in a variety of different geographies. AGFA supply a national PACS in a small European country. That's a very dispersed solution already based on current technology, and that works. But thinking about the question you were asked, Marius, and the challenges potentially that you've got, there is also a taking it in a phased approach, as Rowland's described with regards to cloud, and there may well be a transition. So in the NHS, which the CIO in each institution will want to have their say, and their approach may be slightly different. So I think going on those journeys as a network, so now I'm stepping back from the NHS, but using our experience and thinking that's translatable everywhere, you have to keep a range of people with you, from the executive, the tech, through to the PACS team. They're the most important day to day once you're building your plan and then go live, and then the clinical engagement as well. And that's one of the real challenges, which, we can talk outside the room about that. I'd be very happy to, but that's also really, really important. Opportunity for questions again. I'm going to keep nudging. We'll carry on trying to keep talking if we can. We've still got potentially 15 more minutes. This is going to be a slow to the microphone.
Thank you so much, Nick. Hello, my name's Nick. I'm a radiographer at UCH. I think the potential around, infinite scalability, infinite sort of processing power, infinite recall of priors, does that offer you up for infinite cost? If you are, so I work in the independent sector as well for a provider closely related but not quite alliance. And every time we've estimated the numbers of priors a radiologist wants, we've got it wrong, even when you add the 50% on it. So if you've got infinite scalability to process anything through an AI and crap, how do you go to your CFO and say, I need an unlimited check to be able to process potentially unlimited data?
So I can answer that in terms of being the customer that went out and had to work out how much it was going to cost, and you just take a punt is the short answer. But the educated answer is you look at what you've got, you look at what you're storing. Do you want to move all of your legacy or decide you're not going to move it all? And we're moving multiple millions of legacy images that we have that we're going to move across because we think actually that's the right thing to do. And we're going to do it carefully and judiciously and all the rest of it. But I think the answer is you don't decide it's limitless in a way. You do work out what are you likely to do. We know roughly how much imaging is going to expand across the UK and which bit of it will be responsible for. And I think a lot of hospitals can make that decision for themselves as well, as can your organisation, and make that estimate and then go from there. And that's what you bill in. And then but it's, yes, there's a contract, but the reason we're also up here, all three of us, is actually we all actually get on, and the organisations get on to that same level. So we're not going to fall out over some numbers. We're going to have a negotiation if 5 years down the line we're going to need more data storage. And data's getting cheaper and cheaper each week. So that's also a win.
I think that's the point. I think the technology is improving, and as the technology improves, it democratizes access to that technology, which drives down the prices. And so we've been very happy to keep on. We actually lower the prices for our S3 storage continually ever since we actually started. So it's now cheaper today than it was when it first started, because the scale that's been bought by global adoption. And also the way in which imaging is being done in the cloud is also very different. So Andrea spoke yesterday in the opening ceremony about maybe if you just keep, maybe you don't need to keep all the reformats. Maybe that's not quite necessary. You can actually put in protocols that say, you don't need to just spin up the reformat when you need it, make it ephemeral, vaporize it when you don't. one definitive copy of any imaging scan is all you ever need. And I can almost guarantee that most institutions around here, especially the research organizations, have hundreds of copies of probably the same scan on different servers, different research servers, different areas. And if you can start rationalizing that imaging environment, you can suddenly actually really start seeing what you've got when you need it and make some rational decisions about then what you want to spend. Because when it comes to limitless amount of money, talk about AI and all the AI that's running. You know, you can fill your boots with as much as you like because there are thousands of apps out there. And again, it's the same thing. Rational decisions have to be made about what you want to run on the imaging you've got.
The other comment I would make goes back to we all made decisions when we transferred from physical film to digital archive that we just kicked the can down the road over storage. So AGFA is also moving in the digital pathology space. And when I go out to meet a customer, and indeed, again, NHS representatives, I'm making the point they need to consider what they're going to archive. Because in the digital pathology space, they keep gross, they keep slides and digital. You know, so that they've got triple storage, and there's a justification for triple storage, but it's, to me, it's a bit loose because in actual fact, the report, be it a pathology or a radiology report, is the medico-legal record. And the purpose of going back to the imaging is for comparison. So if you had one less set or something that was less relevant or something that was older, you can manage without it if you've got a report. You just have to accept the report is right. But hang on a second, we all accept that our reports are right. Yeah, well, we must do because we're not measuring ourselves versus the AI, but AI is under massive scrutiny. And we've not really touched on AI and the benefits of AI in the cloud sat next to your application. I don't know if either of you want to comment on that as well, because I think that makes it easier, as you were saying, through the APIs and so on, but it's going to make it faster. It's going to make it, oh, nearly spilt the water. We're going to make it more diverse so that as the scale of AI comes in, it's going to be connected to more places. So it's an extraordinary opportunity, but I think it's necessary.
I think on the storage point as well, or the streaming, there are these, talking about these managed services, these packets of code. We've got one that's called AWS Health Imaging, which actually reduces the cost of storing imaging in the cloud by about 40%. Because there's a novel compression algorithm now for DICOM images, which is completely new. And it's now available, you know, if you want to build an application, you can have this managed packet of code, you drop it in, it can store, stream, and tier, basically, medical imaging out the box. And that's not a PAC system, but it is a component of a PAC system which anyone can then leverage. And I think that connection to AI is absolutely integral. I think that the ability to turn stuff on and off with a click of a mouse without having to take the AI, download it on the local server, integrate it, plug it into the UX, it's all now much, much easier to connect. And again, putting AI in the workflow is a critical step because there are lots of AI out there which stands alone, different screen, different. If it's outside the workflow, very unlikely to be successful. I agree.
Hi there. Thank you very much. I'm Marcus Bradley. I'm a clinical director of one of these imaging networks in England. Is there any risk with the cloud computing that one particular, I don't know, nasty malware or something could actually cause havoc and cause, you know, the whole system to go down at scale? Some problem you've not foreseen. You know, you talked about isolating the various on-site servers, and one of them goes down. You know, you can mitigate it and work out. But is cloud computing so secure that that scenario won't happen? So
once again, everything breaks. That's the first thing. So you can guarantee that something will happen. There will be a node in the network, but the way that it's architected, there are regions, and within each region there are 3 availability zones. And in the UK, for instance, there are 2 regions. And so you can actually have, within 3 availability zones across 2 regions, you can have backup between those regions. So any one availability zone will go down and your business continuity will be maintained. We actually are we've developed something called an isolated recovery environment, which a lot of organizations are actually moving. It's like their gateway to the cloud, especially with regards to electronic medical records. So in particular, Epic, which are massive, you know, it's a massive application. Epic is one giant application of like 40 years legacy code. And so you've got to have massive compute power to run Epic. And what we're finding is a lot of organizations are wanting to go to the cloud. So we now host Epic fully in the cloud, in production. But we also run backup disaster recovery and also what's called isolated recovery environments for that reason. So basically do you remember the old Mac time machine model where you like pressed it and it goes, how far back in time would you like to go? Click, go from there. It's a bit like that. So you basically run an isolated recovery environment. If you get hit by a malware, you turn the whole system off, you reboot it from the last piece the malware wasn't in, you start running again. So the whole CrowdStrike issue, when it took down all of the Microsoft services because there was an incompatibility, their organizations took weeks to recover from that. If you run an isolated recovery environment, you literally turn it off, turn it back on again, it starts running. So you're not going to say that you're not going to get hit by some nasty malware. It's a constant battle. There's a constant fight between people trying to infiltrate and cause problems. Often things are just misconfigured. It's not malintent, it's just not working properly. But you can go back and reset and get going again quickly. So it's business continuity, not never going down, if you get my drift.
So I'm going to say we've got 5 minutes to go. That will take us to 25 past. Give you your last chance to think about coming to the microphone for a question. I'm worried that the audience may not actually be connected to this device. I'm hoping there's people outside the room listening. And if you are catching up after the fact, you can find out about our services both at AGFA HealthCare and AWS's respective sites. So last questions from the floor. Here he goes. Good. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If that's okay. Thinking of the scenario in an imaging network perspective, not everyone's going to be on the same supplier. There are boundaries between different suppliers, and it's one of probably the biggest frustrations that when you come up a different organisation, they don't always play nicely together or they don't work together, and it's a constant connecting systems problem. How do you see the future of that developing?
I'm going to go first, if I may. I'm just going to jump in and say, well, we can demonstrate imaging networks in the UK where not everybody's on the same PACS, and AGFA will put a render node in the relevant site and connect. And I think that's very much where we are at present. A lot of what we've talked about in reality, following up from what Marius said, may be too big a jump for institutions to take. And that may be that imaging networks can't agree that they're all going to be on the same PACS. So as a vendor, part of our strategy is to make sure we can connect those different records. I think there is some challenge around making sure that if you are accessing the record from another institution, that all the things match. So we do know patients in the NHS may have more than one NHS number, particularly for the different institutions. We're aware that the exam protocols and study labeling may be different. And again, we've got solutions to deal with all of that, to normalize the data. And I'd just suggest come and talk to us and see if we can assure you that what I'm saying is the case for now and going forwards. I'm going to turn this just back to Peter briefly, thinking about the whole ecosystem. So in amongst this, there's an EMR, which Streets Heaver are providing. There's clinical decision support, which colleagues from Xwave are providing, and they came around with some postcards for you so that you can follow up. We didn't have space on the program today to get everybody in the room. We wanted to focus on our solution and cloud because we knew that's what would be on everybody's mind. But Peter, in terms of that ecosystem, tell us a little bit about the project status. You've alluded to Go Live and the importance of those other solutions to Alliance Medical.
So I think it's all about optimization of workflow. So we've looked at what Alliance does right from receipt of a referral to delivering a report back to the clinician along with images in a timely fashion to the right clinician. Because sometimes where the referral comes from is not where the report needs to go back to. So to the question earlier, we partner with around 100 trusts. They all have different RISs, different PACSs. We've had to find a way to plug in as things stand. It's very manual. It's sending out engineers to site. It's working out a local server connection or a node or whatever it is. On cloud, that will be simplified. That's the other aspect of that. It will be more vendor neutral, if you like, than it probably currently is. And those connections will definitely be smoother and better. But I think the key thing with all of those partners is that we're going to optimize each of those steps. So, clinical decision support doesn't take the process away from anybody, but it helps them along the way. It helps the referrer choose the right test. It helps the radiologist, if they're vetting that referral, to agree or divert the patient to a different test slightly if that's what's required. But it can monitor that, support it all the way, hopefully speed it all up. The same with all of the the bits of process, if it's all on cloud as well, you're not having to try and do an install in Newcastle and the following week an install in Truro and then somewhere in the Midlands. It's on the cloud. You effectively, I'm not a tech person, so forgive me, you two, but you kind of just plug it in and go. I'm a radiologist, right? But that's the essence, and that's the idea, and that's what we've been sold, and that's what we're starting to see at Site 1. But we're just trying to get it right, so it's taking a little bit longer because we want to be able to just replicate. And that's the other thing, is that when you fix it for one site, and that one site we've chosen deliberately because we knew it was going to be challenging because of their existing legacy systems as well, we think what Site 1 will be the hardest, and the others will become easier as a result. And it should then roll out, and it should then streamline that process. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, this isn't about any of us, it's about the patients that we're doing it for. And whatever you do, you try and make it about them and make it as simple for them to go through the process. And we're just doing the kind of the technical bits around that. And you want to feed that patient back into their MDT, back into their clinic, back into whatever it is that they're going back to, so that their treatment continues as rapidly as possible. And whether it's us or whether it's the NHS, it needs to just kind of work wherever they are, ideally. And that's genuinely what drives us forward with this.
Final comment from you, Rowland, with regards to that?
I mean, there's so many different routes you can go from. I mean, even surfacing patients' imaging back to patients themselves, so they can access it themselves. I mean, there's a whole piece around patient empowerment, which we haven't even discussed on. But again, if you can build networks where you actually know where all the imaging is, and you can build actually timelines of patients, you then get to really interesting places that will empower individuals to go to any organization and have all of their records and all of their imaging longitudinally available at the point of need. Now that is a dream at the moment, but I think that's a very exciting dream, and I think that's something that, I think we're all in the right place to work on together.
Thank you very much, both of you. For the audience, thank you for bearing with us. Hope you enjoyed the lunch. I remind you that Rowland is speaking to the whole conference tomorrow morning at 11:30. Please consider that in your timetable for tomorrow. There are several senior colleagues from AGFA HealthCare here, and we'd be delighted to see you on our booth now, or follow up with our local teams around Europe and indeed the globe. And we all want to make sure that you can grow, work, and have life in balance. So thank you very much.